James is over the other side of our studio with Media Watch.
I did just snort when I was laughing at that.
Raul
It was
Castro
kind of
is in
point,
Paris.
but anyway.
Did any of the French media headline with "C'est cool, Raul," as the French kids say sometimes?
They might have done, but
Yeah.
there were various headlines about it being cool, or at least historically kind of important, all of that. Positive headlines, at least. Let's take a look at this one in the Washington Post. On an historic foray, Castro visits France as Cuba opens up. For the Russian news, it was similarly upbeat. France and Cuba open a new page in their bilateral ties. Well, that's actually a quote by François Hollande. In any case, in El Mundo, in Spain, they were a little bit less optimistic. They were saying, is this just a passing fling in terms of the warming of relations between the EU and Cuba? They say this was very much reliant on the warming of relations between the US and Cuba, signalled that change signalled, of course, by Barack Obama. And when he leaves office, will things continue in that vein? It remains to be seen. They also say, look, there are still there's a big chasm in terms of values, in terms of a gap in terms of values between the EU and Cuba, notably in terms of media freedoms, press freedom. And this article in El Mundo speaks about the issue of blogger Yoani Sanchez. Now, she has a hugely successful blog called 14 y medio, 14 and a half, and it's critical of the Cuban regime. And she has to put her server through Madrid, basically, in order to publish that information. And indeed, the president of the French Senate, tweeting today, Gérard Larcher, said, look, he will be meeting Raul Castro and he's going to talk to him about the case of this very brave blogger who is essentially in exile.
So, Monsieur Larcher,
Yes.
who we've met, he's been here many times at France 24, nice guy. He is a rare voice raising the issue of human rights, because mostly what we're hearing about is business, and more business.
That's right. I think it's similar to the visit of the Iranian president last week, when the focus was on, a new stage in relations, business, etc. So a lot of the other issues get pushed into the background, and it's often left to demonstrators, to those who are living in exile from Cuba in Paris, to make that point. And indeed, many Cuban exiles did protest. A lot of them pointing to the fact that back in 2003, Reporters Sans Frontières, the journalism, freedom of speech NGO based in Paris, they also pointed out that in 2003, François Hollande spoke extremely critically of the Cuban government, saying it is a political nightmare. It has power based on a personality cult. There is a refusal to hold free elections. There is censorship, police repression, locking up of dissidents, work camps, death penalty. In short, everything you'd expect from a dictatorship.
And all that's true, but of course all that now is put to one side whilst we try to inveigle our way into some kind of business situation.
So
maybe it's an alternative way of doing diplomacy. I don't know.
I guess between 2003 and 2016 there have been some changes in Cuba as well, but it's not like none of that is relevant anymore.
Indeed.
Certainly the freedom of the press is essentially non-existent.
Okay, so we await news on the fate of the blogger of the blog 14 and a half. We'll take a look at that.
Yes.
Move us on to the, badly photoshopped photo awards.
This was Nikon, Mark. Now, they gave an award to a photograph taken by a guy called Chai Yu Wei, which he published on Instagram. Now, on first look, this looks like a very impressive photograph. It's looking up a ladder towards the sky, and he happened to photograph a plane as it was passing by, except he didn't.
The shape of that aircraft is weird, isn't it?
Well, you picked up on something that Nikon didn't pick up on, even though they're supposedly the experts, because if you do a little bit of contrasting on that photo, you can see that it was actually photoshopped. So you can see there what they did is they changed the contrast, and it shows that the plane was superimposed over the image.
Cheeky tinker.
Cheeky indeed. And when he was quizzed about how long did you wait for that plane, he answered, not too long, I was just lucky. In any case, no, he wasn't lucky. He photoshopped it. But egg on the face of Nikon, who have now been quickly become the laughing stock of, quote unquote, the internet. This is, I think, one of those moments where the internet breaks, so to speak. But I really like that one. And is
that you? No.
That's not me, but it's another James.
Another James.
And look, this is somebody's interpretation of how the plane made it onto the photograph, but I don't think that's how it worked. Look, lots of examples, Mark. That's Daniel Day-Lewis. No, it's not. It's somebody doing the splits. I can't remember.
It's Jean-Claude Van Damme. I recognise him. James, thank you very much indeed. James Creedon with, we should just call this lot James Creedon. Thank you very much indeed. Media Watch, Kate, of course, with the business. Great to see you. And Miss Piggy.